for companies of all, I mean this sincerely, companies of all sizes and scope in every industry, now more than ever, to be thinking, what's your China strategy? You know, maybe a couple years ago we were asking, are you a China-ready company? Maybe you're a China-ready company now, but what's your China strategy? And to think through all the permutations of what that means to your company, from back office to front office to sales to product development, research and development. I think the major shift that's happening now is people have always dreamed about China being their next big market, but have largely used it as their shop. And that's been good for China, and it's been good for the buyers in foreign countries. But now it's a more holistic approach where you're thinking about what products can I bring to China that makes sense for China? What services can I bring? It's not just about products. There's a whole service sector here. So we take something like China's aging population and knowing that they are going to need 150 million new nursing home beds in the next 10 years. Well, it's one thing to lay out those beds. It's another thing to really understand how to service that community and what makes an effective, assisted living or nursing home facility. So there are companies out there who are really smart about how to do that. But they might not have thought about going to China, and I'd love to help them, but that's a service. There are golf courses going up across China, and all these golf courses have one thing in common. They have luxurious properties built on them. What they're finding is that it's not as easy to sell those properties as they thought, and because there's a very specific way to sell high-end real estate tied into leisure community living. So we're actually talking to a company right now who's in the business specifically of selling those products on behalf of developments, and they want to bring that service to China. So here's a guy who is basically helping move $3 million condos in Orlando, who probably never thought about China in his whole life, but now he realizes they're not building any more golf courses in Orlando or Nevada or Arizona, but they're building them in China. And the immediate thought is, well, they need course designers and course architects and club pros and the equipment, but nobody thought about, well, how do you actually move what's the driver, no pun intended, behind moving these properties. So that's one example. One project that we worked on was recently, we took a legal service to China that had never been offered before. In summary, we, through working through the Chinese government, were able to get approved to sign up Chinese companies to become plaintiffs in class action antitrust lawsuits that were settled here in U.S. courts. And no one had, prior to our knowledge, had thought that, wow, I could go to China and sign up Chinese companies who were injured as a result of the collusion of these companies who got nailed in U.S. court, and that they could sign up and recoup their losses and participate as plaintiffs in a U.S. settled suit. So the first hurdle we had to get over was explaining to everybody in China what a class action lawsuit was, and explaining to everybody what antitrust meant. But it was an educational process. It was a process of getting the government on board and involved. But this was, some really original thinking on the part of our client, that they said that 20% of the injured parties for this class period were in China. And that would have been true in so many other cases before, but no one had ever tried to go and take that service there. And we were the first to do it. We set a precedent. So when I'm thinking, and we're talking about a $150 million company here, not a $150 billion company. So, it fits right in with this SME trend that we're seeing, that, whether you're producing components in Ohio, whether you're offering legal services in New York, you need to have your China strategy developed, and you need to implement it soon.